All right, let's get everybody on. God, good grief. I mean, good grief. Okay, how many folks we got? What is that? About 30 folks?
A little over 20, I think.
Yeah, it's close to 30. Yeah,
Yep.
I think, right? It's close to, no, you're right. It's closer to 20. I missed Gage. Yeah, great. This is great. Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. I just want to share with you some thoughts, and I would appreciate your thoughts back. I'm just taking a quick view of who all's here because I know most of you, so I appreciate that. And let me just stick this in the chat. Here's my number for those of you who I may not know as well. So this is our monthly kind of get together to try to talk about where we are with respect to not just Midtown, but District 3 overall, which includes most of Midtown and most of Jackson, but also is to discuss about the overall district, which is all of APS. So I'm very open-minded to all of that and your feedback. To be quite honest, I think there's a lot of concerns about redistricting. So I would appreciate to hear folks' feedback on where their thoughts are on that. I have my own thoughts, but I appreciate your thoughts because your thoughts are what I couple together to make my decision on as your representative on how we move forward with respect to this with respect to this work. So with that said, and without me going any further, can I open it up just to ask you if you have a particular feedback or if there is no feedback, and then we'll kind of move on.
Yep. And so as always, Board Member Olympiadis has opened up the floor for public to provide feedback, ask questions, and just engage with her. But we do ask that you use the raise hand feature so we can put you into a queue. And so because we do have a hard stop at 11, we just ask that again, if the public can be respectful and just be mindful of time. Thank you.
Oh yes, and I don't think I opened with that. Yes, I do have a hard stop at 11. I have an appointment at 11:15. So I do have a hard stop at 11, and I always try to give you as much runway as I can. And I appreciate the fact that we can all talk, and I don't see anybody's hands up. So I would like to hear your perspective on where you are with respect to the Jackson changes and the Midtown changes with respect to schools being redistricted to other schools. Can anyone provide me any?
I was going to say, Board Member Olympiadis, we have two hands that went up as you were talking. So we have Susanna, and then we have Melissa.
Okay, great. Susanna, yep. Please. I apologize. I see it now.
I mean, it was like, I think while you were talking. Yeah, so I, specifically with the Midtown cluster, as somebody who's been around for a minute, as Michelle knows, I think this is something for all of us who've been around for a long time. We've been discussing for a long time, different options. I do really appreciate all of the numbers and the data that have been presented at the different meetings, at the cluster meetings, capacity meetings with the different graphs. I think those are incredibly helpful. I think the only, feedback other than that. I think we're getting to the place. This is a hard decision no matter what happens. And I think we're getting there with a lot of good discussions. I think the one thing in the first proposal with the school-based solutions, I just think, maybe having a little bit more clarification about what that technically looks like, because those can be different things. But I think I just appreciate I like numbers and I like maps, I like things like that, and the concreteness of how it's been presented. And it's not, no matter what happens, it won't be an easy decision. And I do understand I have a historical perspective of the fact that this conversation has been going on a lot longer than the last couple months. And I realize some people are just coming to it right now. So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate that. If there was any clarification, I just love to see a little bit more what those school-based solutions are in option 1 for Midtown. And thank you.
Okay, Susanna, just to be clear, in option 1, my understanding is we're not looking to do any changes. In option 2, we're looking at doing changes. So I guess my question is, where do you see, and I'm just being parent to parent here,
Yeah.
not necessarily board member to constituent, but it's kind of parent to parent. Where do you see the alleviation for capacity, or what are your thoughts around that? Because we do have a capacity issue.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the map and you take all of the other things out of it and you're just looking at numbers, obviously Centennial is the easiest thing to move and cut, right? I mean, I was actually looking at the map this morning. Physically, that's where it is. In the option 1, it does say there's school-based solutions for overcapacity. And I think that is just the question, is what those school-based solutions are. Is that taking, a room that's not, I know we've discussed like the College and Career Center getting changed into a classroom. I think there is a level of not understanding what that is, like teachers on carts, that kind of stuff, that for people who are not, and obviously I have an education background, what the school-based solutions look like. And I think that explanation is a little bit needed, as to also why just school-based solutions don't necessarily 100% fix the problem. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
Absolutely. I think that's perfect. And to your point, and as a parent, I think Dr. Botman does a phenomenal job.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere she's been, to be quite frank.
Right.
Of using her space with respect to making sure that she's providing the best educational outcome for all children.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how to better say that than that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just know it being, having a background in education, I understand a little bit what school-based solutions are, but I think it would be helpful for everybody else to potentially see.
Yeah, I got it.
As a comparison to option number 2, which is the redistricting.
Yes, of course. I've got it. Better understanding of what school-based solutions are. I've got it written down. Okay, perfect. Okay. Keith, I think we've got Waukesha.
So, no, not Waukesha. It's Melissa and then Waukesha.
Okay, sorry, Melissa. Yes, of course. Sorry, my apologies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a little stuffy from the pollen, but so I'm hoping y'all can hear me. My problem with the rezoning is that we're taking our kids from APS schools and putting them in partner schools. This is the Carver cluster. So this is Jackson and Carver. I don't think that should be a rezoning even in consideration far as putting kids in those schools, because they're not up to par as of now. And we do not have the proper support. So I don't think that taking APS schools, no offense, and putting them with partner schools is a good idea. So I think that we need to go back in the Carver cluster and the Jackson cluster and actually look at that. I do believe that we need to rezone. That was one of the things that we had talked about for years, about rezoning with the influx of kids that are in those particular clusters. So I do believe that rezoning is necessary, but I do think that we need to go back and look at how we are doing it. That's just how I feel about that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that feedback. It is interesting to see where the proposals are and what folks are suggesting. And I think it's important to get the community feedback to understand how we should move forward. It's going to be interesting. I would even be tempted to say it's going to be tough. And this is kind of where we were about 10, 12 years ago at the last redistricting. It's not going to be an easy process. I think what's important is we have some voice, and we listen to what folks are saying, and we try to do our best to make the best things happen. So I appreciate that, Melissa. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right,
Keith,
thank you, Melissa. Yep, so we're at Waukesha now.
Okay.
Hey y'all, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I just wanted to, I didn't know if y'all was talking about rezoning or where y'all was in the conversation, but this is what I wanted to say. Michelle, I thank you. I thank you for standing 10 toe downs on your decision when it comes to a lot of the different issues throughout our school district. A lot of us come to your meeting, you're always open, willing to listen, you'll take a phone call. And I just urge people to have more conversations with other board members, because Michelle, I do believe you have listened to us. You've tried to always speak up, but you let your vote roll with what you say. And so I appreciate that, because we have too many board members that say one thing, they meet with the community, and they vote another way. And we're sick of that. We want this superintendent gone because she's doing absolutely nothing for our children. This will be her 3rd year here. And we've met with different people. They say one thing, but they vote another way. I do agree with Melissa. It's going to be hard to send kids from a Grady or a Jackson to a Carver or a Washington because of what they have experienced. I will say Washington was one of the first schools that had all of their schools STEM certified, but I noticed that that wasn't lifted up to kind of show that we were doing some great work in their cluster overall. But I urge people to please talk to other board members. I think I seen Cynthia on here. I think I seen possibly some Tamara. I see her on here. We need to know what y'all gonna do. We can't just put all the pressure on Michelle alone, because she go and she vote what she hear first. Now we need to know what the rest of these board members gonna do, because we're gonna be from this board. Thank you, Michelle.
Waukesha, I always appreciate your feedback. I certainly can't speak for my colleagues. I can only speak for myself. But I do try very hard to listen to what the community says, district-wide. I mean, District 3, but I listen district-wide. And yes, we have a lot of challenges. We have a lot of opportunities. And hopefully we're moving in a new direction in meeting the needs of our students. I think that's what everyone's asking for, and I think that's what we're trying to do. But I always appreciate your feedback, and I always appreciate speaking with you. I thought there was someone else, Keith. I thought it was Meredith.
Yeah, it was Meredith, but I think she lowered her hand. I don't know if she's still with us right now.
Okay, no, I see
But the
her.
floor is open. If anyone else have any
Sure,
questions.
I'll speak up, and just to reiterate, like it's going to be a tough decision, this redistricting. I was a part of the conversation 12 years ago, and I was in those meetings because I am on my way out the door with my kids being older. But we can do hard things. we can make hard decisions, and we have to stop kicking the can down the road. So unless we're going to start slashing the budget from the central office and the top-heavy school district that we live in, where adults seem to be profiting off of our kids, and our kids are suffering, and our teachers are struggling, and our administrators in the schools are struggling, then it's time to make these decisions and stop basically not giving the principals in the schools the money they need to operate with the amount of kids they have in the schools. So you guys as a school board, and Michelle, like Waikisha said, you vote with what you say, but others are not. And we have to make these decisions to get these schools to a point where they are able to operate in a safe and effective manner, and not shoving kids in classrooms. But if it means that, some kids are rezoned to another school, well, we lived through it with Spark and Morningside. It can be done. We're going to live through it on the elementary level now with the Virginia Highland Elementary. It's going to be hard to start, but in the end, in 12 years that Spark's been around, or 11 years that Spark's been around, look at it, it's top notch. So we can get the other schools to be at the level of a Midtown, of a Jackson, if we can put money back into traditional schools across the board.
Meredith, I really appreciate your comments here. I totally agree. And I'm sorry, my computer is talking more than I am. You can see my email draft with the beings. I appreciate your feedback, and let me just be clear. And I appreciate you stating where you believe I stand, and I respect that. But let me be clear on this. From a budget perspective, we have to change our paradigm in APS. When you look at what the state, I guess, regulates or mandates with respect to charters, I would prefer using regulates instead of mandates. With respect to charters, they get their money up front, and they get their money allocated across the year, even if our property taxes increase. Okay, so they get that. If our property taxes increase, they get an allocation for that. We don't in traditional schools. In traditional schools, we get leveling. That's it. I mean, we're cut off at whatever that date is, and just to kind of be fair, it's around October. So we either get more money or we get less money around October, given what our enrollment is, and that's it. It's different for our charters. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just what the law is. It's what the regulation is. It's what we are obligated to do. With that said, as many of you know, we have more charters than any other school district in the state. We're at roughly 19 out of 50 across the state. So I'll let you digest that, and then we can talk about it later. With all that said, yes, I have asked for a year and a half now if we could please make funding our schools a priority, and then looking back at what our district departments do and how that can be reanalyzed or redistributed or reconsidered or reorganized, whatever the right term is. I believe we have plenty of money to fund our schools. And while I appreciate the fact that I live in Midtown and my children have the privilege of going to Midtown schools, it is the community that supports the schools more so than the school district. And I think that's been made very clear over the years. And I mean that honestly, to be quite frank. So Keith, we're going to go with Lisa. Okay, Lisa. How
Hi.
are you? How
I'm
are
well.
you?
Can you hear me okay? I have headphones on.
Yeah, of course. Good to hear from you.
So it's good to be here. Thanks for having the meeting. I have a couple of questions. One, I'm always trying to, understand. I'm in the Midtown cluster, so I'm always trying to understand some of what's going on outside. And Melissa's question earlier about rezoning kids from traditional schools to partner schools. As a parent, I'd love to hear more about that. If she could be allowed to talk more about which schools are being zoned that are traditional to
Of course.
partner.
Of course.
Then I also have a question on the rezoning. It was a question I've asked before. And because I'm a little behind, I've missed some meetings lately, but understanding, what happens when kids, especially high schoolers, are going from one signature program to another. Because I know that, Midtown was college and career, then is, working on STEM, but Jackson is the IB, correct?
Yes.
So that has a big impact on those high schoolers that might be moving. And then I didn't keep a good note.
You're good. Take your time.
I don't know what my last question is. I may need to raise my hand again.
Yeah, just have another cup of coffee and then raise your hand.
I'm sorry, I remember what it was. I've seen a lot of notes lately about, and I know this kind of goes back to the big state of the cluster, which I expressed my feelings on in the last meeting, but this focus on partnerships. And I know you've said in the past that, look what, schools that have strong partnerships can do, and focusing on district level partnership making. And one thing that worries me about that is, yes, schools do great with partnerships, but a district-wide, I just would like to know more. When there's a district-wide push for partnerships, is that something that's working for every school? Because one of the things I think that works at the school level is the principal knows what's needed. So they find those partnerships that serve those needs. I get a little concerned about district-wide pushes for partnerships because I think it leaves it open to what's the relationship between the parties involved, and are they actually providing services that are needed at all school levels? So that's just a concern I have about the district-wide push for partnerships. And those are my three comments.
Okay. So Lisa, let me start off with Midtown. Should I start there? It was Midtown and a little bit about redistricting that kind of bleeds into IB and AP, which I think is perfect. So with respect to Midtown, as you may know, and I'm sure you do because you're quite informed. So the question is, do we stay the same? Do we try to figure out how to kind of regroup what we're doing at Midtown? Or do we suggest that we move some folks from Centennial into Washington? And I think that's kind of where the discussion is I could find other words. I think that's kind of where the discussion is. And what I have told folks is, yes, we renovated and expanded Midtown. And unfortunately, after 2 or 3 years, we're at capacity. And do I believe that there are more opportunities to expand? Absolutely. And that's another conversation for another day. However, where we are now with the administration is the question of, do we try to figure out how to kind of regroup what's happening at Midtown? Or do we look at putting Centennial back into Washington? And when I say back into Washington, I kind of pull my gray hairs out. But it used to be Lucky Street Elementary School before it was Centennial, and it was zoned to Washington. So that's where I'm coming from that perspective. However, at the same time, I'm respectful of the fact of people's concerns, parents' concerns about and students' concerns about moving back. I think there is an opportunity for us to have a cross relationship between Midtown and Washington that would afford us the opportunity to say, hey, we appreciate everything that Washington has to offer, and we also appreciate everything that Midtown has to offer. And I think that there's an opportunity for us to bridge that over if that's something that we're looking to do a year from now in 2024. So I will say that I think there's an opportunity to have a bigger conversation and a deeper conversation with both communities to find the right fit, if that makes sense. With respect to your perspective on IB and AP, you're right. There is always a bit of a concern over those two. However, I also believe that they're both very strong programs, and they both have the capacity to, again, kind of bridge over what they're offering. With respect specifically to Jackson, which is IB, with the proposal of going into Carver, which is STEAM, yes, there are some concerns there. And again, I think that needs to be a conversation that needs to be had. With respect to Benteen and Barack and Michelle Obama, I am on the record clearly as stating that those communities need to stay together. The communities need to stay together. We do not need to break neighborhoods up. We've already done that in Virginia Highland, and I think we've really created a precedent that is not conducive to keeping communities together and keeping schools together. And my philosophy has always been around walkability, bikeability, communities staying together and moving forward. I understand that there's plenty of capacity at Carver, and I appreciate the fact that it is a partner. And I appreciate the fact that they might need to be supported. But I do not believe that that's at the expense of communities. Is that good, Lisa?
Yes, thank you. And Tamara pointed out, I think I misremembered some of the communications, but yes, thank you for explaining about the Jackson to Carver. And I understand Midtown to Washington. Thank you.
Of course, of course. And I'm also very supportive of the Jackson community staying together and us using, well, my son's at Crim right now, but I'm very excited about exploring the opportunity of using Crim and Cone as swing space for the Jackson cluster. I mean, they are totally exploding. And I think I think the community needs to come together and have a conversation about what's in the right interest of what's going on in those two schools. And while I appreciate the programming at Crim or East Atlanta, I think there are better options for children or students. I should say students because they're mostly mature. There are better options for students to have other opportunities in other facilities that are better located with respect to MARTA as opposed to East Atlanta. So I think we're at Waukesha, Keith, is that right? Or no, it's Melissa again.
Well, I was gonna allow Paula to go first, then I was gonna go back to Melissa.
Okay, all right, I'll let you manage, no worries.
Keith, can I go ahead and go so I can just say real quick? Because she's gonna, I know this conversation gonna be long. I need to get off the phone.
Okay, go ahead.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
Yeah. What I wanted to say is, for the lady who asked me about partnership schools are in the Carver cluster for me. It's Carver cluster, is with purpose built, and it's Carver Steam, Slater, Thomasville and now close school, and Price. So that's for us. Now, them coming into the partnership right now, they're not doing that well. So I don't think that Obama Academy needs to come in and go to Slater. First of all, it will fill capacity with Slater, Benteen, and Obama coming together. It will give a capacity of over 1,000 kids at Slater. And right now, like I stated, Slater is not doing too well. So I don't feel that kids need to be coming from a school that is good, which is also an APS school, need to come into a partnership school that is not doing too good. That doesn't work and doesn't look well. So I think that at this moment, I feel as if we need to dissolve that partnership because that's not an effective partnership. You know, they was brought in as a turnaround strategy in the first place. So is not an effective partnership. It needs to be terminated, and APS needs to take back these schools. I think that we can do that, and I feel as if APS has done a great job at getting a lot of schools off of the state list. And if we have partnerships that are going on the state list, then that means that they're not effective. So that's what I meant. But if you want to know anything else about charter schools, please start going to the charter commission meetings. They do have them once a month. They are open, and you can come and sit and listen to what and how funding is actually distributed. So that's all I want to say. And thank you again, Michelle, for doing such a great job. I always talk to you. So thanks again for the wonderful things that you are trying to do. And we got your back, girl. We got your back.
Y'all are always kind. Yeah, I appreciate the feedback. It's always important to hear what folks have to say. And you were right. We entered into partnerships just before I was a board member, but we agreed to enter into partnerships as a district to make sure that we're not going to get taken over. And that whole takeover plan did not come to fruition from the governor's office at the time. And I agree with you. It is time for us to take our schools back. So Keith, we're going to go with Paula now.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Paula. I think you're still on mute.
Yeah, we got you on mute, Paula.
Sorry about that. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
no worries. Yeah.
Good morning, Keith. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Michelle, for hosting. I echo some of the things that Melissa said. I think that option one is probably the best option for us for the Jackson Carver clusters for many of the reasons that she mentioned. But I also think we have an opportunity in this discussion, and I really hope that option one doesn't just become that it becomes the beginning of the conversation for my cluster, which is the Carver cluster as well, and the time that we need to plan to get it right. I heard the things that you talked about as far as Midtown and Washington being more compatible. I think that some of the things that we can do with our signature programs is also make them more compatible. We also have 4,099 students in the Carver cluster. It's been a little concerning to me during this process that many families who are in the process and hearing the conversation don't realize that we have more than enough students living in our, in walking distance in our cluster to use it. They just leave it. They have left for many reasons to go to other Atlanta public schools or to private. And this has to be an opportunity to discuss how we bring them back. I think Lisa was saying I heard quite a few people here say, they know the history of 12 years ago. Yes, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, our kids weren't using North Atlanta, our kids weren't using Midtown, our kids weren't using Jackson. And somehow or another, we all worked with Atlanta Public Schools to get families to commit and to have it be a two-way street where we could work together on our schools as communities. We need the same opportunity in the Carver cluster. And this time right now, while we're discussing this, is the great time to say, okay, put a pause on it for a year, go with option one, but then let's use that time to change these outcomes for the Carver cluster as well as Washington wherever needed. We're growing, we're gonna have to go there at some point. But you know, schools make our communities, our children, you know, in our schools, and I am zoned for Slater. We have 469 kids there right now, and those are the children in my neighborhood. And school is only part of their day, but when a school works, it makes their whole community day a real day. It makes their day and their walkability and the things that work in their community, the doctor's offices, things like that. Schools in our community that aren't working don't help us, you know, make all of our things work. And Melissa, I know you've experienced this with Capitol View. So we need our schools to work in the Carver cluster so that our communities become the safe and helpful extension that our children all need. They're there. You know, we're all talking about it like it's just this thing that kind of doesn't exist. Melissa knows this, Waikisha knows this, Yanetta, I see so many faces on here that I'm very happy. We've got a whole community. We just have something different than everybody else, which is a very divided cluster. We also have Gideon's, which is part of our charter conversation. But we are unique in that division, and we would love to be more like the rest of you because we have a whole lot of kids and families and resources that are waiting to do that. So whatever everybody here who is in the power of a vote can help do to use this upcoming option one to help us all do that and sister with all the good things that have been working in the Jackson cluster. It's just at the top of Boulevard and we're at the bottom of Boulevard. We're a conduit, you know, on that side of the cluster.
Yeah,
we can all do this, and you know, we're at the point of, you know, begging you guys to let us have our community schools, our neighborhood schools work like everybody else's. So thank you, Melissa. Thank you for the things that you said.
Oh, thank you, Paula, for saying all of that. Michelle, and again, thank y'all. Got to get ready to get off the phone, but thank you, Michelle, Paula, for saying all of that. But I do believe that at this point of trying to rezone right now, I don't think it's a good idea. I do think that once we have partnership that is effective and supportive in a better place, then we could look at that. But I don't think taking kids from a healthy school to put them into one that is not doing as well, is unhealthy, is a very good idea.
Yeah, as long as we start getting it healthy too, you know, I mean,
exactly.
like, I totally agree with you, but we need to just not go back to the status quo of ill health.
Exactly.
You know, we all need to work together to change what we know is not something we don't want to send any kids toward. We need it to work for all of our kids.
Exactly.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
All
Michelle.
righty.
Yes, thank you both. And you know what, Lisa, I think I missed the partnership because I was checking my little boxes here. I think I missed the partnership, and I know that Dion has her hand up. With respect to your comments on partnerships, I believe that the school should have their partnership so that the school is able to share with the partner, whoever that may be, what their goals and vision are with respect to the school, and not be kind of what I've said in the past, not dictated about how their money is supposed to be used, if that makes sense. And I see, and in my opinion, you know, what we've done as a parent, what we've done at Morningside Inman, Howard, Grady Midtown has been much more about literally partnering with folks who are willing to give us some funds and making sure that that's been to the best use of the community. And I think that's the right move, in my opinion. And I apologize that I missed that point. All right, Keith, I think we've got
Yep,
Dion.
Dion. Yep, it's Dion.
Okay, no worries.
Good morning. Thank you guys for doing this again, for showing up. It's something that we can count on. I know I say that a lot, but it does mean a lot. The empathy that you're showing to parents routinely, we can't thank you enough for doing this. So we talk about putting kids first and student-focused governance and student realities. But, you know, then we as community hear from parents and we don't see that empathy a lot, because the problem is those same voices who are reaching out via email to different levels then are discredited, and then the retaliation happens from the people who have a seat at the table. And we often wonder if those board members and parent leaders who have property that they want for personal reasons, political positions that they want for themselves or others, or positions that they want for themselves, jobs at schools or in businesses, if they really are putting kids first, you know? And that's the concern. So now we yet have another conversation. This cluster has gone through the Spark Morningside. Then what are we going to do with Inman in terms of renovate it? We ultimately decided, you know, to renovate Howard. Then we had the Virginia Highland, and now we have the Midtown. We have gone through a lot as a cluster over the years. And I've just been part of the conversation for 12 years. What I'm saying is exactly what Paula said. Take what you learned from the Midtown and North Atlanta cluster and use that. I feel like we're trying to reinvent the wheel so many times, and we're never really looking at things that worked and applying them elsewhere. We just continue to have meetings that are actually not putting the kids first. And we can continue to discredit things that have happened over and over and over again because it doesn't align with people's personal gains that have seats at the table. So then we start to discredit parents and we start the rumor mill, and it's toxic. And we're not going to tolerate it anymore. We all deserve better. Our kids deserve better. And that, as a community, that's what we're asking for. So please, when you're going through this decision-making, for the board members who are on here, for the parent leaders that are watching right now, I'm telling you to put all of it aside and stop and put the students first, not just your child, but others in this district, and sorry, in this cluster and others, please. Personally, I have concerns. I'm going to echo what Susanna said. The innovation we don't know about. You know, just hearing core classes is not the same what it is at high school as it is in kindergarten and middle school. We still haven't acknowledged that publicly. There's just so much that we are pretending like doesn't exist just to get to a decision that impacts people's lives. And I'm just asking you all of you, to have empathy for each other, but ultimately for the students. Thanks.
Dion, I really appreciate your comments. I believe that at least myself and my colleagues do try to put children first. It's unfortunately a complicated web. And there's some of us who are more vocal than others. But yes, I believe in putting children first, and I always have. And I appreciate the fact that you're not pleased with what's happening with the district. I think that's fair feedback. And in my opinion, it's been that way for many, many years. With respect to redistricting, it's going to be tough. It's a question, basically the way that I see it, or at least the way that I see it being presented, is it's a question of capacity. And so with respect to that, it kind of creates a caveat of, how do we balance what's good education or what's a good school versus another school, or how do we bridge that? And I think that's the question, is how do we bridge that? How do we say we have no more capacity, we've got a bridge, so what's the bridge? And I think that's the question. I think that's the opportunity to say, we want more support, and for where we're asking children or students to go, given literally capacity numbers, and making sure that they still have a real experience with respect to their education. And I believe in that sincerely. So I appreciate your comments. And Keith, I see that Paula's hand is back up.
Yep. So we can go back to Paula.
We do, I can't say enough here that we have an opportunity. The reason that I said 4,099 families, I mean, kids, like, this option one is honestly, it ends up being a good pause where we really have to put a magnifying glass on why families would not come toward my cluster, and take that and turn it into a power list of opportunity. Something that we can do next in this conversation is figure out why out of 4,099 kids, only 1,700 are using our cluster. We can do this. This is, and then take the experiences that are working right up the street and sister them to our cluster. We've done these hard things, as Lisa said. We've already done it. We know how to do it. We need to be let in to do that, which is very difficult in partner schools that are focused on what they are focused on. I understand that focus, and somehow or another, we have to be allowed to have a whole cluster and an innovation that is real and open. And I hope our board members, Michelle, thank you for your honesty, Tamara, Cynthia, any other board member that is listening, having raised a kid in the Grady Midtown cluster, many of us, whether we lived in the Grady Midtown cluster, went to those schools. You didn't have to live there to go. You're not living necessarily in Jackson to go there. There are plenty of parents who have their kids in Jackson cluster right now who do not live there. We got to look at the opportunities we have as boots on the ground to work with our administrators, to work in our communities, to work with our churches, all of us in these clusters, to do what we already know how to do. All of our kids have gone to those 3 clusters, if we're honest, or our brothers or sisters or aunts and uncles or cousins. We know what's there that we can move for our other kids. We just need the help of the 9 of you to mobilize us and to give that to us. There's nobody in Atlanta that doesn't know how to go to Midtown, Jackson, or North Atlanta. Now, let's all take what we already know and come back in and do more. We need the 9 of you to support us. And I look forward to that. So thank you, Michelle, so much. Thank you, Keith.
Of course, Paula, it's great feedback. I think, Keith, we got Waukesha back on.
Yep. Waukesha, you're on.
Okay, great. So this is my thing. We have leadership. We need the superintendent to come to us and explain to us why this was dropped at a time like this. I dropped this in the chat because at the end of the day, principals are focused on, along with teachers, they're putting out fires, they're trying to do testing. Why would you drop this rezoning on the city like this, knowing how we felt from last year to the year before last and on back? Why do you keep doing this and dividing us? Because it showed a clear divide when we start having these conversations. Paula is absolutely right. You know, we can do some great things, but we got to be real here. We got to call out this leadership for doing what was done. You came to us and you know you did not have enough information to give to us, and you want to shift people's children another way without having the proper information. Now you come to us and make that make sense, because I've been to all these meetings and I watched how she have went to no Jackson cluster, no Midtown cluster, but she was at the Douglas cluster. That was absolutely unacceptable. And she needs to come to us and explain to us, how will this be okay for these children and their families to be shifted like this? Our land, because the board already know how we feel.
Well, Keisha, when you talk about Douglas, you're talking about the split at,
The Douglas rezoning.
yeah, but you're talking about the split at the elementary school.
Right. But the superintendent showed up at that meeting. She did not show up at the Midtown or the Jackson meeting. She was not at neither one of those. But she showed at that one because she knew that that was not going to be well attended. So here's the thing, ma'am. If you can't stand the heat, don't be in the kitchen. Don't bring the smoke and then don't show up, because you need to come to us and explain why you did this. And you went to the least, you knew that it was not going to be a heavy meeting. You went there because you was talking to staff. Staff is going to go with what they know because they got to get their check.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, all right, fair enough. That's fair feedback. I'll take that down. I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that, to be quite honest.
No, that's fine. Just when y'all have y'all one-on-one, tell her to bring herself to the community and talk to us.
I certainly will. No worries. Y'all tell me what else y'all want to talk about. Like I said, I have a hard stop at 11. We still have like 30 minutes. So, hey, Reynard, Reynard's with us. Hey, Reynard. And then we got Dion. Hey, Reynard, what's going on?
Hello there, Michelle. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I have a quick question for Mr. Glass there.
Of course.
Mr. Glass, how you doing?
Keith.
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. I have a question regarding your meeting minutes, your meetings on your website, the Atlanta Board of Education. I've been going through them, trying to look at some of the voting records there. There are meetings that when you click on things that should have a voting record, be it meeting agenda, consent agenda, discussion items and actions, of which there's no recorded voting there. Like who voted for what?
Reynard, let Pierre chime in. I think this is more Pierre's realm than Keith's, but y'all get me straight.
No, you're right, Michelle. And so, Reynard, I hope all is well, man. If you're looking, it depends on what you're looking at. When we integrated the system, you may click on tabs that you may not see for certain years before we switched over from board docs to Assembly. But if you look at the minutes should show you the actual voting for that particular for that meeting. So I think it's like if you're looking at stuff from 2018 and beyond that point, going down to like whenever we started using board docs, you would see that in there. When we started using Assembly, you should be able to see it on those items. And so the information is present, but you need to click on the minutes tab in order to see it. You won't be able to click on individual tabs to see the voting of board members.
And what if there is no meeting minutes and there still does not have a voting record on the particular sub item on the agenda?
So just direct me to that. If you could just shoot me an email, let me look into it specifically, just so I can make sure. And then we can go from there.
Okay, so basically there is a recorded vote. Is there a backup somewhere? I know you indicated that you all switched over from board docs. When did that conversion occur?
I think it was about
2
2.5.
years ago?
Yeah, about
Yeah,
two and a half years ago.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, Raynard.
About 2 years ago. Okay. And so if there is not a meeting minutes on a board meeting, and there is not a recorded vote on the sub agenda item, do you all have backups for that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Renard, if you just send me the meeting that you're speaking into, let me look into that just to see if we have it on the system. And if not, I should be able to get you that needed information.
Okay. Do you all record votes? I mean, is there a tally?
Yes. Yes.
Or does a person has to go through
No.
each meeting to determine who voted for what?
No. There should be, and Pierre, I don't mean to step over your toes, but there should be a full summary of every meeting with respect to votes and comments and tallies, if you will.
Correct.
Yes. And Raynard, you're more than welcome when you reach out to Pierre, you're more than welcome to copy me just to make sure I give Pierre a hard time. How about that?
Well, I thank you very much. I'll be happy to CC you and have you on the email correspondence, Michelle, Miss Olympiadis.
Of course. And I say that jokingly because I know Pierre knows that. I know he knows how to do his job, but just to be fair.
Okay.
Yeah, but Raynard, honestly, yeah, if you just shoot us the meeting that you're speaking of, let us look into it because it may be on there. Again, it's just how the conversion happened, where to look for it. And so I can actually show you how to get to it if it's there online. If it's not, I'll make sure we get you a copy of what you're asking for.
Of course.
Okay. So let me ask a second backup question. Is there an attendance summary throughout the year for board members?
Yes.
On a summary level?
Yes.
Not an individual board meeting level.
No, it's individual meetings.
So you all don't have a summary. There's no summary as to
No.
who attended what meetings or who voted for what on a summary level.
No, Raynard. What you will get is who was where when. Right, Pierre?
So what? If I'm understanding his question correctly, he's asking if there's a summary of all meetings and votes. No, all that is individual information.
But all meetings, I mean, you know who attends all meetings.
Yeah, by going through, I will have to go through them individually.
Individually.
Yes.
All right, I didn't realize that. Okay. Yeah, I would say that Cynthia is the best attendee.
Okay, because I guess my ultimate goal is I would like to have some type of ranking as to those who have and have not been in attendance and what they voted for or not voted for.
So honestly, that's something that you should be able to pull from Assembly. And that's the reason why I was asking if there are minutes that you're unable to see, I'll be able to share that information with you.
So you do have a backup. Is that what you're indicating?
We have access to our meeting minutes. That's correct.
Okay, sounds good. Even if they're not on the website.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, great. Keith, I see that Dion has her hand up, so let's move forward.
Okay. Dion, it's back on you.
I'm waiting to be called on from the Pierre or Keith. Is it now okay time for me to speak?
You're on. I mean, Keith, is there an issue or we're?
No,
good?
I said it's back on, I was saying it's back on Dion. Dion, you can speak.
Is there a reason why the meeting?
Okay, I'm sorry, Dion. I think Keith had frozen. So I think he popped back in, so it interrupted the recording. But I think we should be good to go now. I'm sorry, continue.
So, okay, I'll start again. During our principal coffee, it was brought to our attention that a school-based solution is going to be proposed to have 4 asynchronous virtual days next year and 2 half days next year in order to give the teachers more professional learning and planning time. So my concern is that taking away direct academic time from students is a solution, but I think there's other solutions we can talk about as well for the problem, which seems to be teachers do not have enough professional learning time and planning time. The question is from my understanding prior to Herring, professional learning time throughout the year was managed by the principals in our charter model, so that because they knew what was best for the schools. Now with Herring here, that has been taken over, so professional learning time is being planned and managed by central office. So the problem is, it sounds like the teachers need more professional learning and planning time for things to build their skills and to prepare for their students. And the time that they're being given is not being used in a way that sets them or the students up for success at their schools. With this change that has been made, that there is mandated professional learning coming down from CLL. So with that said, that's my one question to the board is, can we look at that and see what we can do about that, knowing what our problem is? And then 2, just understanding that, for example, Foundations in Norton Gillingham has been running through our cluster and the North Atlanta clusters for years. So sending and requiring and mandating our teachers to go and learn about that at an entry level is not a best use of their time.
That's correct.
Or sending them elementary schools to a high school and mandate them learning the new high school math standards is not the best use of their time. So we have this resentful relationship that's happening between students, administration, and it's ultimately, again, potentially impacting the students in a negative way. So I'm bringing this and elevating it to your concern. It is going to directly impact my children potentially. And again, they're trying to implement this potentially to solve a problem that is happening from central office and is negatively impacting our kids, but we have to help with staff retention. And it shouldn't be at the cost of kids being in school.
Okay, Dion, I appreciate your comments. Just to make sure I got this right, because I was taking some notes. AG reading is at high school?
No, the big picture is this. It sounds like the professional learning and planning time is not being used to the teachers' best benefit, to the benefits and setting them up for success. It's not a best use of their time. So they need more time. The question is where are we going to get that time?
Okay, and then with respect to your remarks.
With respect to exactly what's happening at Howard, at the next GO team meeting, a proposal is going to be put on the table that there is 4 virtual asynchronous days and 2 half days. That is 1 of the solutions that's going to be proposed to fix this problem. But this to me sounds like a problem that's happening across the district with teachers. We know that our retention rate has gone from 87% to 80%, and there's over 755 positions and vacancies now available. So my question is can we look into this problem going on with staff, and is this truly a problem? And we need to potentially change some things up next year so my kid isn't stuck home in virtual school.
Okay, I appreciate the feedback. Again, and I don't mean to be redundant. So OG Orton Gillingham, with respect to reading, the concern is across the board.
I think the bigger picture is, Michelle, is the mandated professional learning actually necessary for all of the teachers? Or is some of that flexibility and charter model more appropriate? And do we need to get back to that? Because different schools and different teachers come in with different levels of knowledge and certifications. It's what is the best use of the professional learning time and professional learning days that we have on the schedule? Are they being used in the best way? Understanding that there is differences in people's backgrounds.
Agree. Okay, I'll agree to that. And then with respect to math,
I don't know. The rumor mill is that elementary school teachers were mandated to go to high school math standards this past Monday on Professional Learning Day, and they felt that that was not the best use of their time, and then were asked to go to staff meetings, which extended their day the following day at schools in the district. Again, the point is are we using the professional learning days to the best benefit to set up the teachers and the students for success?
okay, fair.
And do we need to revisit that because a change was made with the new administration and mandating what happens on these days?
I hear you, and I appreciate the feedback, and that's fair. I'll see what I can find out.
I would love that, because this is all part of what you guys voted on yesterday. I don't know what your vote was, Michelle or Jennifer's, because you guys were on Zoom, and unfortunately they didn't call out what the votes were in the room. You guys lowered the benchmark and you're considering lowering the target. Well, that was the recommendation from Dr. Herring, was to lower the target as well, which you haven't voted on that. But this is all part of the, how do we make gains for our kids? We have to implement a plan that is appropriate, and then we have to see that for the students. But this all comes, the professional learning needs to match that.
I hear you. And
the planning time that looks at the data that's needed to make those adjustments needs to be there so the teachers can do their job. If you're making them do other things during that time, then they can't do their job. So then they have to take away academic time or personal time. It's not working. What is going on is not working. Our retention rate is dropped 7%. We have 755 positions available. It's not working. Michelle, I know you know this. Cynthia and Tamara, who voted to lower the benchmark, I hope you guys are listening. Any other Board of Education members, anybody else listening? It's not working. It's not working.
I did not vote to lower the benchmark. And that's a different conversation for another day. I appreciate your feedback, honestly. I will do better. I thought I was strong and I'm not, so I'll just do better. Does anyone else have any other comments that they'd like to share? There's a
Ms.
young lady.
Sherelle?
Yes,
Oh,
good morning. Good morning
yes.
to everyone. Good morning.
How are
Um,
you? Oh my
I'm
gosh.
doing, I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking.
No, how's your son doing?
Not well, but we are fair. So
I
thank you for
got
asking.
I got you. No,
Thank-
COVID's been a hard hit, I think, on everybody who's special needs. Yeah. You call me whenever you need me.
Michelle, I want to say, don't beat yourself up for being the lone wolf. It's sometimes lonely at the top when you're trying to do the right thing for children. So I appreciate you doing that. But I think it's high time that we take a hard look at management. It is distressing and concerning to me that we cannot project the future when they have plans in place for us to look at and to evaluate to see growth, whether it be in population or economics. And so I'm just having a hard time because we were at this place some years ago. I've been in the cluster for 20 years. And
Yes.
we've been using rezoning as a solution to address all the issues when that's not the real problem.
Correct.
We have to find somebody who can manage schools in a large city as Atlanta, and with all the politics that it includes. It is high time that we put children first. But I think I saw Mr. Johnson said, a healthy, superintendent brings down healthy employees, which makes healthy students. And so it's high time that we start looking at the real issue and address the elephant in the room. It is a hard talk, but it's not like adults can't do it because we are the ones that's creating the issues. But more importantly, what you are doing in school, you're going to put out in the future. Those children are going to start in elementary school, go to middle to high school. What you feed them in school is what they are going to bring to the community. And so what do we want our future to look like? We have got to stop playing around with education and be serious. And one of the other things I talked about, students with disability. I haven't heard anything about that, but what I do see is the superintendent gets on media and talks about the pandemic and what effects it has had. And I've talked about a class of 22, a target 2022, because those students were in the pandemic the longest, but they were let go without additional supports that would support them. We are going to see, y'all look at this and you look at the numbers. You're talking about being at 90% capacity now. Does the data show that she's educated our students? And then now you're talking about going back or using virtual as an option. And then we're lowering the bar. What are we going to be putting out in the city? If you think you have crime now, you wait until children have idle time because they have idle mind, and you wait and see what the outcome is going to be. We're looking for economic growth. We're looking for leaders. Are we putting those students out there? That's my question is, take a hard look. And to the other board members, silence is consent. If you don't speak up for children, I know we all on here, we all have it. We say we've been through school, we get our education, but that's not where you stop, because you continue to live after that. You have got to do something about this. It's got to be done now. That kicking that can down the road, you're right. We've done that a long time. And I'm telling you, I don't even see the can now because we kicked it so far down the road. We've got to take a hard look. Start now. Stop playing with leadership. If you can't manage, you don't need to be in a position. Partnerships are good, but if you're not going to get them for the right reasons and use them for the right purposes, we don't need them. I appreciate the platform. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Let's talk offline about how your son's doing. I know it's a lot. Okay, Keith, I thought we had somebody else's hand up. I don't see anybody's hand up.
No, I think we are.
That was me. I lowered my hand because Miss Sherelle, exactly what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Don't
No.
fall, Michelle. You're doing the right thing.
No worries, no worries. Anyone else? Any other comments? Oh, y'all making me feel good. Yeah, I got some feedback that I need to, sorry, give me a second. I got some feedback. Oh, Dion's got her hand up. Okay, let's go with Dion.
I just want to add for that mom who just spoke, and if your son has graduated, 504s and IEPs, look into compensatory services because they are due for children who have graduated. So contact APS and talk about compensatory services and what is due for your children for services they did not get during COVID and because of COVID.
Thank you, Dion, but unfortunately, that doesn't carry out over to all students or all parents. Unfortunately, I wish it was. I wish we could be that way for all students.
Ms. Sherrill, you know I hear you. Yeah, it's tricky. I don't think that's a fair term, but anyways, yes. With parents who have special needs children, it's a bit of a trick, always. Deanna, I appreciate your feedback on that, and I'm sure Ms. Sherrill does too. Her son and my son, they're a couple of years apart, and not too far apart, maybe a year or two. You tell me. But they're good. They're good friends. They're good friends. I heard somebody click in. Is there somebody else that we need to hear from? Okay.
No.
Yeah, it sounds like we're good. I just want to be I just want to be transparent about this. Y'all have me for as long as you need me. Okay. I got feedback that I was supposed to have these meetings for just an hour, and I don't believe in that. I did tell y'all this morning that I do have an 11 o'clock hard stop because I have an 11:15 appointment. But you're welcome to talk to me for as long as you need to, anytime. And I hope y'all know that. So Keith, I think we're good, right? No, see.
Yes, ma'am. I think we're good.
Okay, I don't see anybody raising their hand. Is there anything that anyone wants to say? Oh, we got somebody. Is that Melissa?
It's
No,
Dawn.
it's done.
It's Dawn. Hey, Dawn, what's going on? How are you?
I'm good. I just want to say thanks, Michelle, for being open and just answering all of our questions. So thanks. That's all.
Oh, you're kind. You're kind. Yeah, like I said, I'm here, and let's make sure we stay open. I think that's the point. Let's just make sure we have a conversation. So Keith, we're good?
Yes, ma'am. We're good.
Okay, then if y'all need me, you know how to get me, or if not, you just reach out to the board office and they'll get me, or your friend who might know how to get me.
Done. Is your hand back up?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I have a question. I see that Cynthia Briscoe Brown is on the call, like at large. Is there ever an opportunity for them to actually have like district meetings like this where we can talk to them and ask them questions?
I think
Like
Cynthia,
at large?
Yeah. I think Cynthia and Tamara are on the call, but
and I'm happy to respond to that. We are in the middle of planning at-large listening sessions right now. The first flyer will go out in the next day or two. We expect to have 4 of these before the end of the school year, which quite honestly is about as many as we can fit in between now and the end of the school year. But we will do 1 in each sort of quadrant of the city. And if you remember, we did these back pre-pandemic where they are very, very informal, no agenda, no presentation, just an opportunity to chat. And all three of the at-large board members are participating in those. So look for those flyers to come out shortly. We've already got one planned, which should go out today or tomorrow. And the rest of them, we are working with folks in the communities to make sure that we reach as broad a group of people as possible. So yeah, so the short answer is yes, that's the long answer.
So here's my only concern is that I actually participated in those listening sessions, and the word listening is, I want to be able to ask questions around not only budget, but kind of what's happening with literacy. And I want you to be able to respond. A listening session says that you're going to listen and go, I hear you, but there's not going to be a back and forth dialogue. So can they not be listening sessions? Because honestly, those were not valuable. Just talking to you was not valuable. To me, I want, just like if we ask Michelle or Katie, we ask them a question, they answer the question. I would want more of a forum like that, but listening, just me talking to you, what's the point of that? We've done that and it wasn't really, I didn't find it to be helpful at all.
Well, that's interesting because I think one of the things that maybe I've heard on some forums is that some community members don't feel like we do listen. And so I think there's a difference of opinion there. However, I will say,
listening and responding, you could do both. You could do both. I'm not asking for you not to listen, just respond. I want you to listen, but I also want to have a back and forth dialogue. So I'm asking that you listen, but also be able to respond if we ask a question about the superintendent, if we have a question about kind of a program. I want there to be a response. Listening says, I'm only going to literally listen to you, but you're not going to get anything back at that moment. That's all I'm asking. Okay. So it's not one or the other. It's not a zero-sum game.
Got it. Okay. I think that certainly we are open to answering questions that we're able to answer. And will, like Michelle does, will commit to get information on things that we can't answer. So yes, I expect it will be a back and forth.
Perfect. That's all I asked.
Your comments are noted, and we'll be sure to incorporate those in as we plan the events. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think Dion has a question.
Yes, Cynthia, I'm glad to hear that finally is coming to fruition. And I just want to say I greatly appreciate that you will offer more individuals a forum to give input and express concerns. And I do hope it is not just drafted questions, hand-selected questions that are then answered. That is also sometimes a frustrating situation to be a part of. It doesn't seem genuine. So some sort of bringing in all those pieces would be greatly appreciated. If we
I think we do a wide variety of kinds of events. I think the ones with the questions submitted in advance give us an opportunity to do that research and get that information so we're able to effectively answer those questions. That is not what these at-large listening sessions will be. And that's, again, they're very informal, and I'm not sure you were as involved when we did them before, but it's a very informal, they tend to take place in restaurants or coffee shops, and we really just sit around and try to do that very informally, again, with no presentation and no pre-selected questions or anything like that.
Well, I hope we use some of our amazing school facilities that are able to host a larger amount of people. We have some great facilities, and I hope that is done so it provides more space to have a lot of individuals to come and listen and share and meet other people. That's my input. Thank you.
again, we have a wide variety of different kinds of events, and I'm just talking about one kind.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Cynthia. Thanks, Dion. Anything else? It's MS11, and like I told y'all, I've got a hard stop, unfortunately. Anything else? Okay, sounds like we're good then. If you need anything, please know you can always contact me anytime. We'll catch up next month, if not beforehand. We good, Keith?
We're good. Everyone have a great weekend.
I agree. Everyone have a good weekend.